All right, that should be it. That should be it.
Okay.
All right, for the people that are in chat, which is a large number of people, I think much more thanks to Josh than to me. I definitely think it's probably not me doing anything. I would say thank you all to being here. And can you hear Josh? Josh, do you want to talk? I'm just curious. How this
Hello?
is going?
Hello, hello. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Let me know in the chat. If I look over here, by the way, I'm looking at my other monitor and I'm kind of monitoring the chat too.
Okay,
So,
cool,
uh,
perfect.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I figured out a way to do it. This is a first try, so I'm excited that people can hear you. So Josh, thank you so much for joining me, and it's exciting to get to chat with you. I actually know a little bit contextually where you're at due to a behind the scenes tour that Professor Meg gave whenever she was visiting you guys. So I've seen how cool your offices are, and mine are almost as cool. So that's some drywall mud, and in between that
Yeah.
is just drywall with no mud on it, and eventually it will be painted. So
It looks beautiful. It looks
I
beautiful.
appreciate it.
For what it's worth, we've been working in essentially a construction zone for almost 2 years.
Mm,
It's been a little over a year and a half. Um, of like we were all working out of one big room, and we finally got like fully moved into our new office
nice,
space like right before we had these content creator weekends to show off everything.
sweet.
So yeah, it's only been recently that I've had a cool office. Prior to that, it's been a pretty makeshift scrappy
Yeah, no,
office.
I was very much impressed with what you guys had going on there. I there was a show on Netflix that I watched for quite a bit called, I think, Grand Designs, I think was the name of it. And it just showed a bunch of houses that were kind of like unique. And one of my favorites was this cantilevered shipping container, which I'm pretty sure you guys have in there. It looked like you had them like set on top of each other in perpendicular fashion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Josh Carlson, one of our owners, has always wanted to do a container house and kind of realized that wasn't going to be possible, and therefore decided to instead take those ambitions and bring them here to work. And now we have a super cool creative
That's cool.
workspace, and everybody is excited to come in and work in the office. So it's
That's
cool.
cool.
Just in time for everybody to go remote, right? I mean, that was kind of just in time for our entire culture to shift to a hybrid working environment or work from home environment. So perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, we've got a lot of people in chat, so I figured we could not keep them waiting any longer and discuss all the cool stuff that you guys have on the docket. Where there are a couple of, I guess I'll tease this for people that are here now. There are a couple of very exciting announcements that we can either distribute across the middle or the end of the stream. So we've got some fun news here that Josh will be able to share with us. And do you want to go by Josh or Ghillie? Because I know that you go.
I really, I do not
You don't
care.
care.
I do not care. I've told my story several times. When I started as a low level chip theory employee, I was the second Josh. So they called me Ghillie to kind of like make sure everybody knew who the number one Josh was. And then when I started working on the games, we needed to like backpedal that a little bit so that I could retain my like
Your human
actual
identity.
identity and that kind of thing. So yeah, so at this point, people call me Ghillie, people call me Josh, people call me JW. Here in the office, it's a lot of JW and JC to
Sure.
differentiate between the Joshes too. So whatever, it doesn't matter. Call me whatever you want.
Okay, well, for all of you that are here, whether you're here because you're from my community or you're most likely here from the social shoutouts that Josh gave, so the larger CTG community at large, we are here to talk about Elder Scrolls 20 Strong, just some of the upcoming things that are going on with Josh and with his team there up in the lovely old state of Minnesota. My experience with you guys has been since all the way back with Too Many Bones, but now you guys are currently, for quite a while now, have been working pretty tirelessly on Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. And era. I think I said era. Anyways, this is, I mean, unless there is a backstory across your other games that I'm completely unaware of, which I don't think so. This is your first board game design based on an existing IP, especially one as large and as well recognized as Elder Scrolls. So I was curious, where does this game fit within the chronology of Elder Scrolls? And maybe if people aren't familiar with Elder Scrolls, I have a history of Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim, so I'm very familiar with the game series. But maybe a little bit of a backstory on what Elder Scrolls is as a universe, and then where this kind of fits in the narrative.
Sure. Yeah. So let me preface that by saying I'm not by any stretch a Elder Scrolls lore expert. So my answers to this question are going to be fairly surface level.
Sure.
But so the license that we signed is for the Elder Scrolls at large. Like people keep calling it. I hear people keep like referring to it as a as a Skyrim. They're like, oh, when is Skyrim coming out? Or like, because that's the most well-known Elder Scrolls video game. And so truth be told, the Elder Scrolls video games, the single player ones, as well as, they've got a mobile game as well, and Elder Scrolls Online, they all kind of take place at different time periods. And so there's not like, Skyrim was not a direct sequel to Oblivion necessarily. Morrowind was not a direct prequel to Oblivion, for example. And so our game, though it is a Elder Scrolls game, it takes place across Tamriel. Because of that, we have been mostly working with the Elder Scrolls Online team as it relates to most of our approvals, as it relates to all of our lore and that kind of thing. So the game takes place during the second era of Tamriel, Betrayal of the Second Era. And that is the same time period that Elder Scrolls Online is taking place.
Gotcha.
Basically. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have not played Elder Scrolls Online. At least my understanding is that it is classified as an MMORPG. So if you're familiar with World of Warcraft, I was an Elder Scrolls boy back in the day, or not Elder Scrolls. What is it? EverQuest. I was an EverQuest boy back in the day, so I'm familiar with the game type, but I have not played it. So interesting to know that it kind of fits within the lore in that time of Elder Scrolls Online. What I was curious about is what excited you the most about this opportunity to make a story within the world of the Elder Scrolls universe?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. I mean, that's a big question. I mean, but the main thing is just that we grew up playing Elder Scrolls games, like all of us here. Like there's, and it's rare to have a license. I think you would struggle to find any licensed property that would excite everyone here on the Chip Theory leadership team. But this was one that we all had a lot of passion for, a lot of experience with, and something that frankly, like, we felt was very much in our wheelhouse from the way that we develop games. Like the thing that people love the most about Too Many Bones, generally speaking, is that leveling up of the character. It's unlocking new dice to roll, unlocking new skills to work with. And that it was actually Andrew Navarro. So he's the former head of studio at Fantasy Flight Games. Now is doing his own venture called Earthborn Games. So Earthborn Rangers is their first game that'll be coming out soon, I believe. So we hired him on for as a contractor for about 2 years. And he had experience working with Bethesda because FFG did the Fallout game. Yeah. And so he was actually the one that was like, hey, I think Too Many Bones. He was like, at FFG, we were trying to get the Elder Scrolls license for years, and they weren't interested in giving it out to a board game. And he's like, but I think Too Many Bones systems would make a lot of sense with an Elder Scrolls skin, essentially. And they seem to be open to it now, and they've been really easy to work with Fallout. Like, I can try and land that license for you guys if you hire me on. And so that was kind of part of the reason we got him to work with us for 2 years. And he's actually the one that helped kind of broker that relationship and broker that deal. Cool. And yeah, we just love the video games. It's really, and then it also served as like a, Chip Theory's always been a little bit of an oddball company. We've been, we make weird stuff. And we're kind of, I think we've been viewed for a long time as kind of this niche little mom and pop shop. And so for us, this was an opportunity for us to step out and see what working with the license is like, and then also sort of announce to the world that like we've arrived. The fact that we were able to land this license felt like a signal to the rest of the industry, I guess, and board game fans everywhere that like we're not just a weird little company making weird chip games. Like we're making really, really high quality, in-depth stuff, and you should pay attention. So
that's awesome. What I was curious about was, because you are taking something that has existed in a video game world and translating it to a board game experience, what challenges have you faced in crafting a gameplay experience around this particular like IP?
Yeah, the biggest challenge has just been that we, at the end of the day, don't have final say. And anytime you're working with a license, you cannot fly by the seat of your pants. And Chip Theory is a company that has always flown by the seat of our pants. We do whatever we want, whenever we want to. We've stayed small enough that we're incredibly nimble and agile as a company. I think some of our fans are familiar with the Automaton of Shale, which was a Too Many Bones pop-up book that we did. It took over a year of work to get that released, but like we decided we were going to do it, and a month later we were taking pre-orders for it. Sight unseen, like we barely showing anything about it. We're just like, hey, we're gonna do this because we think it'd be kind of funny and interesting. So we just did it, and you can't do that. You can't do that with any license. I mean, and much less what is, the Elder Scrolls is the biggest license that Bethesda and ZeniMax have. Like it's their baby. It'd be the equivalent of us, farming Too Many Bones out to another company. We'd be very, very protective of that, right? So, the challenge has really just been that we don't have final say over the stuff. Bethesda and ZeniMax do, and so learning to work in a partnership and learning to work in that back and forth environment. I mean, we've been working on this game for over 2 years already. We signed the license, I remember, only a couple of weeks into COVID. Like everything had just gone into lockdown. And I remember feeling like what I would equate to like survivor's guilt, because it was like this big career moment for all of us here at Chip Theory, and everybody was like all depressed that they were working from home and blah, blah, blah. But we've been working on it for a long time. And that really is just because like it's a partnership when you work with a license. And there's give and take. There's helping. They're trying to help us understand what they're looking to get out of this game and looking to have represented in this game, and we're trying to help them understand what we're doing from a board game perspective. And we were very. I guess one other thing that's maybe important to note is that from the outset, while we certainly wanted the game to feel very, very, very much like an Elder Scrolls game. Because obviously there's a magical formula there that works really, really well. We did not at any point seek out to make Elder Scrolls Online the board game, if that makes sense. Like nothing we're doing here. In no way are we trying to one-to-one replicate what's happening in the video game on a board game level. We are trying to make a really, really great board game, first and foremost, that has Elder Scrolls themes and Elder Scrolls, recognizable things in it. But we're not looking to do this like one-to-one conversion. And that also has made the process take a lot longer, because we can't point to literally everything in the game and be like, here's how we're doing what you do in the video game here. Here's how we're doing this. So that's been part of the challenge, but we're really excited about how far it's come and where it's at now. And I also should say, like, this system, had it not been the Elder Scrolls, would have ended up being our sequel to Too Many Bones. Like, that's how much we love this system and some of these concepts that we've come up with. We were going to release this game anyway. It was a matter of whether we released it as a Too Many Bones sequel or whether we put a licensed skin on it. So there you go.
Gotcha. And this was not a question that I prepared previous to the interview, but kind of what you've been talking about with the process that you guys went through with Elder Scrolls and also the advent of you guys coming into your new offices. Has there been, like, with the arrival, with the finishing of this with the office, and you guys are in your new space, and the kind of gentle push or gradual shift back towards being physically together rather than being remote, and then also at the same time as the office being finished, Elder Scrolls kind of like arriving at the state that it is and the timeline that you're at, has there been like a mood shift? Is there like kind of like a different energy around the office at all? Just out of curiosity, like with kind of like these dominoes or maybe like stacking up or lining together?
Yeah, I think so. I would say that, I mean, everything about, we haven't announced the launch date for this campaign yet, right? Like and again, spoiler alert, I literally just got a text right before I came on from Josh Carlson, who is out at Dice Tower West right now, and had an important Skype meeting with Bethesda today, and we are going to announce the launch date here. There's been a certain amount of like nervousness around this project for a while, just because we've had we flew out to Josh Carlson and I flew out to Baltimore about 4 weeks ago and demoed the game in person for the team at ZeniMax, and that was, I don't want to call it like a come to Jesus meeting, but like that was a big deal, right? Like we were like, are they gonna like it? Like we're trying to help bring this thing to a place where we can just work on the rest of the content. Like we're going to present all of the mechanics in the game. Things will change a little bit as they always do, but like this is it. Like they have to like it, or we might be back to the drawing board on some fairly significant things. The March launch date was going to be called into question, like et cetera, et cetera. To be honest with you, between that and trying to get 20 strong out the door, between Hoplomachus being delayed because of a manufacturing error at the end of last year, and between trying to get also just all the stuff for Too Many Bones Unbreakable here, like there's just been a lot of nerves. It feels like we've been waiting a lot and waiting to see how things are going to come to fruition. And though we have, I think the content creator weekends that we hosted, the last couple weekends, that's really where a lot of the positive energy I think in the office has come from. Nice. Because anytime you're working on any game, you don't. Sometimes you know, okay, this is really working, this is really great, but a lot of times you're kind of too close to it to even be able to tell, like, is this actually fun? Like, are people understanding what we're trying to do here? Is there interest in what we're doing here? And the response at those content creator weekends, both to 20 Strong and to Elder Scrolls, is really kind of what has, I think, gotten us rejuvenated and excited to get going on this campaign and get this thing into the world. So yeah,
awesome.
That was a really long-winded answer.
Yeah,
I talked about what you actually asked.
I thought it was a good answer. And so you guys have such a ardent community that supports at practically everything you do. Like you have one of the most loyal and passionate, I would say, followings that very few publishers in the space I feel are able to accomplish with kind of the DNA or the blueprint of the games that you put out. And there is very much a through line of CTG in all of them. And it's, I think part of it is the kind of, insane levels of production, but it's also, I think, your kind of attitude towards the community at large and your commitment to following through on what are frequently crazy ideas, with the automation of shale. Andrew Chesney, talked me through the process of when you guys did the cassette player for Burn Cycle, where he literally had to talk to people to ask them in China if they still had the means to produce that, which they had been defunct for years. So you guys really go the extra mile, I think, in creating love back towards the community, and they respond in kind. So one thing that I was curious about is you have such a good tabletop community, but did you have the video game audience in mind when you were creating Betrayal of the Second Era?
Yeah. So one of the things that we felt was really, really important with designing this game was to make it more accessible than Too Many Bones. So Too Many Bones, that's our bread and butter. It has almost single-handedly sustained our company for the course of the last 6 years. Though that's changing a little bit with Hoplo and some of the other things that seem to be going really well and selling really well. But we know that like if you're gonna bring Too Many Bones to the table, especially with a group, you need like everybody needs not just a half an hour teach on how the game works, but they also need like a half an hour to digest their character reference sheet and learn how to play their character specifically. And so one of the things that we sought out to do with this game in a number of different ways was just to make it more accessible. So, in the Elder Scrolls, you don't have this crazy complicated character that you start with. You start with your race and you start with your class. And those, generally speaking, are really easy to understand at a glance. You don't have crazy characters that can flip their mat over the way that we do in Too Many Bones. You don't have characters that are building bots that do a bunch of different things and have arrows pointing to things and change, the mechanics of the entire way the game works. And some people will probably miss that, like people who have been deep into Too Many Bones for years, they may actually be sad about that. But in the Elder Scrolls, you just start with your race and your class. You can understand them at a glance. It's really simple. And then the skills that you unlock throughout the game, the skill lines that you unlock throughout the game, you really only need to understand them one die at a time. And they're all much more self-explanatory than things in Too Many Bones. On the flip side of that, the other thing is, Too Many Bones is a really, really like unlikely success story, just through and through. And frankly, looking back at it now, like it's kind of an ugly game from a user experience standpoint. Like the mats are like, it's a lot of dark colors. We had a very limited art budget at the time that the original game came out. Josh Carlson, who was one of the lead designers on the game, was also the only one doing any of the graphic design for the entire game. And, we didn't have a great proofing situation figured out. There wasn't a lot of external feedback. It just kind of got made. Yeah. And the fact that it became this enormous smash hit is, partially providential, partially, it is a great game, but it is kind of just ugly now. And so going back now and working on the Elder Scrolls, number one, we have access to, the beautiful, beautiful aesthetics of the Elder Scrolls franchise. There's a lot of, borders and iconography and color schemes and that kind of thing that we've been able to borrow here. And they've got a lot of pre-designed enemies that we're, and creatures and characters and classes and that kind of thing that we're re-illustrating with our artists. It's all original, brand new art. But we've been able to tackle it and make it really, really beautiful. And from a user experience standpoint, it's just way more intuitive than Too Many Bones is, just like in a number of different ways. So there's that. And then also just, again, we are 6 years further into our ability to write rules coherently, to anticipate edge cases coherently. When Too Many Bones was made back in the day, that was, we inadvertently created all these crazy edge cases all over the place that are kind of hard to parse for a first-time gamer. And we've looked at that a lot more closely. And again, knowing that there's going to be a large contingency of video gamers coming to this game to check it out for the first time who might not be super experienced board gamers, we wanted it to be really easy to understand and easy to pick up and play, which I think the feedback from these content creator weekends was like, wow, it's not a simple game. It's not a super fast game to learn, but everybody was off and running within like 20 minutes. And everybody came out of their demo feeling like they wanted to, Danny Standring and Nick Murphy came right upstairs and wanted to start another playthrough the second that their filmed playthrough was over. And I started explaining, setting it up for them and explaining things, and they were like, "No, we got it. We can run it ourselves. It's fine." And that's all with we don't have like great player aids designed yet
Yeah.
for everybody. Like we don't have any of that stuff. We're holding their hand through all this stuff during the teach, and they were still able to come out of there and just roll with it. So accessibility really was the key, and then also obviously making sure that it felt like the game that they were used to playing on their computer to a certain extent. Like if it doesn't feel like Elder Scrolls, obviously that's a huge swing and a miss.
I think that in terms of components, fans of chip theory games can always kind of see the similarities between your titles, the neoprene mats, the chips, and stuff like that. But I feel each game has progressively introduced some new ideas, some new component solutions that you guys have created that feel so natural to that. I mean, even to the extent of the absolutely absurd brass minis for burn cycle and stuff like that. So are there any interesting ways in which you have kind of diverged from your existing titles with some of your component design in Elder Scrolls?
It's very yeah, from a componentry standpoint, it's kind of got a little bit of every single game in it. The way the dungeon delves work in the game will be reminiscent of the modular hex mats from Cloudspire. The overland battles that you fight when you're not in a delve are going to feel reminiscent of Hoplo, because there's just one big like overland map going on, or mat going on, I should say. The map's a different deal. We have so there's some cool stretch goals. Lots of people have lamented the way that we track the day counter and even like the source counters and that kind of thing in Cloudspire and Bones, because it's tracked either inside a circle cutout in a neoprene mat or on a card, which is like easy to bump. And we've got a pretty great stretch goal that I think will hit for a pretty awesome component that will make that a much cleaner experience. And then we're also, one of the things that we're doing here is we're looking at various ways to, so the Elder Scrolls takes place over 3 game sessions. It's not a like endless, or I shouldn't say endless. It's not a like super long narratively driven campaign. It takes place over 3 sessions, and depending on the guild that you're working on and the quests that you take, there will be kind of a little meta mini narrative that you'll experience that you'll go on. So we're introducing, or we're looking at some cool ways to save your game between sessions rather than just taking a photograph or writing things down. We've got some ideas there. So, but yeah, componentry wise, you'll certainly recognize it as a CTG game. There's just so much of it. There's just so much in this box. I mean, it's wild. But yeah, it's kind of I almost look at it as it feels like a senior capstone project in some ways. Like this is like everything we've learned through all of our original IPs, and we're kind of taking it all down, and you'll see the best of kind of everything involved in it.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
A couple more questions, and then we can maybe have a mid-break point with a teaser or some information. But one of the last 2 that I was curious about is, what is one of your favorite ways in which an element of the video game has been brought to life in the board game adaptation that you've got?
Yeah, I think there's, and this was the feedback too for folks that we've demoed it for. I think there's 2 things. So,
did you guys physically create lock picks that will break if you apply too much pressure? That seems like something you guys would do.
We did not. Let me get out the character mat here, and I'll see if I can. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to explain this on camera. We'll see. So, all right. So here's the character mat, and I'm waiting to see myself on the stream so I can point to things. Here's the character mat, and in Too Many Bones, your character had 16 skill dice that you would unlock, and they'd all go, in these cutouts for dice. And something that's really important in Elder Scrolls games is you can't just like you have to build your character strategically, right? You're not going to unlock absolutely every single skill. You're trying to do a certain type of build for that character. And so The way that we designed this mat is so that you slot in skill lines or stats in these holes, like so. And then they'll have another stat or skill on the other side. And as you unlock things, you are opposing something else. And so, so you might have your health stat here, for example, and you might have your stamina skill here, or stamina stat here. And so if you go heavy on stamina, you're going to reduce the amount of health that you can give your character.
Interesting.
If you want to be a battle mage, you'll want to make sure that you slot, maybe destruction magicka in a different line than your heavy armor or your two-handed weaponry, that kind of thing. And in that way, we're able to represent some of the races and classes from the Elder Scrolls in interesting ways. So depending on your race, it may demand that you slot two specific things directly across from each other. Another common complaint or common criticism, I should say, of Too Many Bones is that stats are overpowered, and that if you lean into stats consistently, like you will win the game way more consistently. And and generally speaking, skill dice are more interesting, right? Like from a gameplay perspective, having a new fun skill to play with is more fun than having one extra health. And so this is another way that we've kind of made sure that you're forced to both, do stats and skills, and you're going to be limited in what you can do on either end. The other thing is that in Too Many Bones, when you use a skill, it's lost for the rest of that battle. It exhausts. In the video games, you can use skills over and over and over again, so long as you have, the proper amount of stamina or magic or magicka or what have you. And so the way that we are representing that is with this cooldown track. And this is so anytime that you use a skill, it's going to go down here in your cooldown track and come back to you eventually. And there's you can see this meter right here. So this is going to start at 2. And that means every turn, 2 dice come back to you. You can level up your cooldown track so that as many as 5 dice are coming back to you at the end or at the beginning of each of your turns. And the other thing that's interesting about that is that often in the game you can choose to take additional actions, but you will add fatigue. And fatigue are just blank. We've been calling them sugar cubes in the office, because they're like blank cream colored dice, and they just slot into your track and they clog up your track basically. So you might risk making another movement or making another attack, but to do so, you're going to take fatigue dice, and they're going to come in here and clog up your mat. And in that way, we're simulating what you experience in a lot of video games. Whereas if you keep overusing things, if you keep swinging that sword, even though you're tired or you're out of stamina, that kind of thing, like your attacks are going to be really, really weak, and you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage. So, and those two concepts on the character mat were probably the two things that we heard the most feedback on from the content creators that we demoed the game from. They were like, "Oh man, both of those systems are so fun and so smart, and they really make you think. They really, really make you think, and they make you want to take risks, but not too many risks, and that sort of thing." So
no, I'm definitely, the competing stats are something that interests me, because I think that for my experience in Skyrim, the thumbnail that I put was talking about the sneak skill, and I think that in Skyrim and in other Elder Scrolls games, it's possible to push your stats so much that you get to the point where you kind of just glide through the game and there's no real tension or pressure that exists anymore, because you've leveled to the point where you create a very yielding environment and there's not a lot of like pushback. So the idea that you've created a system where you have internal pushback against your own stats, I think is compelling, and also makes sense. If you become more of a like robust conditioned individual who has a lot of health, you probably tire out more easily or something like that. And so the kind of juxtaposition of two different stats that compete for each other across the character sound like a really intriguing way to maintain pressure or tension about where the positives are and where the drawbacks are for kind of like your player composition. So no, it's exciting to hear. I'm interested to see more in that. I would say that the last thing I'm curious about are, my questions have been a little bit wide ranging in terms of the gameplay and the title and the experience of the design and development cycle for you. Are there any other details that we haven't talked about that excite you enough that if someone was looking into Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era and we haven't talked about it, that you would want to impart and you would want to share with them?
Man, not from an individual level. I mean, this game just has so much cool stuff in it, though. I mean, again, I think treating it or referring to it as like Chip Theory's capstone project is a really fitting thing. There's dungeon delving exploration where the dungeons are sort of procedurally generated for you. There's the cool and clever encounters that people love about Too Many Bones that are randomized. A lot of people complained or criticized Bones for not having a easy enough to follow like true narrative, and there are quests that have specific fixed storylines and fixed set pieces in this game, depending on the guild that you're working for in each region. There are also big, like, pre-designed dungeons sometimes that you are coming into that again are the big, like, kind of epic set pieces that take place with the same tiles that you use for dungeon delving. I mean, it has so much cool stuff. It has so much of our own experience and just the things that we've learned throughout the years, and I'm just really excited for people to see it. And again, when we demoed it for the team at Bethesda and ZeniMax, their response was like, "This feels like Elder Scrolls. Like this feels like the game. Like you guys have really kind of nailed it. Like this is what we're looking for." So, and then yeah, just again, everybody we've demoed the game for thus far has come out really enthusiastic about it and excited for it. So, and that hasn't always been the case with games that we're about to bring to crowdfunding. We have a history of a company of sometimes bringing things to crowdfunding before they're fully baked. And this one, I think when people see the crowdfunding page for this, the GameCon page for it, they're going to be really, really excited and impressed, and I just can't wait for you all to see it.
That's awesome. So I'm going to be pivoting to have some other questions because I'm curious about other stuff that you're doing beyond Elder Scrolls. But I thought that at this midpoint, it would be a wonderful opportunity for you to share some scintillating news that you might want to give to the very patient viewers who have been with us for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, so at the risk of you all logging off after I announce this, and probably running to the GameFound comments to post this before I can post it in an update and making us look like we don't know how to communicate. So yeah, right before I came on, I got word from Josh Carlson that we are able to share our launch date and that everybody's feeling really good about the state of the GameFound page. We will be launching on March 28th. So mark your calendars. We'll be working to get some major, graphical announcements and emails and that kind of thing out here in the next 24 to 48 hours. But March 28th, the campaign will be launching. I will say the game still has a ways to go in terms of content development. We've been working really, really hard to get all of these systems in place and all of the UX kind of in a good place to demo the game for the license holders at ZeniMax. With that stuff largely locked in, now we are going to work on getting all of the various quest lines, storylines, etc. approved, and then we will be diving deep into playtesting for a while. This is a big game with a lot of variables, especially with how customizable your character is. So it's going to be important to really put it through the ringer and make sure that nobody's able to break it. Some people would argue that you should be able to break an Elder Scrolls game because stealth archer is always like an overpowered, like, invincible
Yeah.
class. We are not interested in making this game breakable personally. So
Are you saying
sorry.
that like
Sorry about
after the very first intro quest, you can't find shoes that make you fly? It's not possible.
that is not
Gotcha.
possible.
Gotcha.
At least not presently. We haven't designed all the loot for the game yet and all the relics. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll allow that.
Oh goodness! And before we move away from Elder Scrolls, there's the continuing thread of joke that's been throughout the comments. Is there going to be any stretch goal or item or anything that's going to reference taking an arrow to the knee? Is that gonna come in at all?
We are trying. I can't. So again, number one, we are working primarily with the Elder Scrolls Online
Yeah.
team. The arrow to the knee
It's from Skyrim.
is from
Yeah.
Skyrim. Now, the Skyrim region, spoiler alert, is a playable region in the base game. So I don't think we've announced that yet technically. We are trying to work in some inside jokes. It's an interesting thing because again, anybody who's played Too Many Bones knows that it is full of like dad jokes and puns and pop culture references and fourth wall breaking goofiness. And so that's actually, I mean, you asked some of the challenges, and that's been one of the challenges is like our personalities. And again, I've written a lot of the Too Many Bones content from a flavor text and that kind of thing standpoint. That's actually been kind of challenging. Is like they obviously take their IP super seriously. And so one of the first things that we actually, if you go back and watch the original trailer that we did that premiered on one of the ZeniMax like Elder Scrolls Online streams, like it's very straight laced down the middle. And we were trying, when we wrote the original script to submit to them, just as an example, we said this game has everything, and like it's got dungeon delving, it's got this, it's got horse armor, it's got an arrow to the knee. Like horse armor, is an even older Elder Scrolls joke meme than arrow to the knee, and like they nixed that because I think we hadn't like proven ourselves. They want us to take it like just very down the middle, very seriously. So, but I can say there's at least one loot card that's kind of a joke that actually was originally denied, and I believe now has been reapproved. Now that they've met us, now that they've played the game, now that they kind of understand what we're doing, I think we're going to be able to work more of that kind of sense of humor, our own personal sense of humor, into the game a little bit. I'm hopeful
That's
for
cool.
that, but we'll see.
That's cool.
We'll see. Yeah. But again, in the same way that if we gave Too Many Bones to somebody else, we'd want them to take it seriously. Like we want them to represent it, like professionals, right? So that's what we're trying to work on. Yeah.
Okay. There's maybe one or two other announcements that I'll leave to the end of it, to where it can give you some desire to stick through with us and enjoy the conversation and get some news at the end of this. But I wanted to pivot for myself to 20 Strong, which is another title that you showed to a lot of content creators. I heard you were very flustered with how well Meg rolled, but
I was. It was not fair. It was not an accurate representation of the challenge of the game.
So for those of you who don't know, 20 Strong is a modular solo system. It features dice as kind of the main component of the game, and it's got multiple universes, of which the preliminary one is Solar Sentinels, but also incorporates the other universes from other Chip Theory Games titles. So I was curious, for people who aren't familiar with it, do you want to give a quick spiel on what 20 Strong is? And then I have a couple questions that I wanted to run by you.
Yeah, absolutely. So 20 Strong, I mean, the product thesis for 20 Strong has been that, for many years, we've been wanting to have something affordable in the chip theory space that, and we've tried that a couple times. I mean, I guess the main one being Trip Lock. And while Trip Lock is a perfectly fine game, it's a game about lock picking, and most of our, core audience is looking for games where they are killing stuff. I mean, just point blank. They're looking for high fantasy. They're looking for gladiatorial combat. They're looking at, steampunk creatures and monsters that they're taking out, sci-fi kind of stuff. And so we've been, for a long time, we've wanted to put something out there that targeted our audience a little bit better, and then also just was affordable, and that maybe we could put into retail with a little bit better margins, and also just something that also, something that you could easily take with you. All of our games are literally and figuratively very, very heavy, and so we wanted to put a game out there like that, but we didn't have a great idea for one. And last summer, we were doing a little leadership retreat, and Josh Carlson came to us and he was just like, "Hey, I've got an idea for a game where you're just working through a deck." And, excuse me, we're just working through a deck, and your goal is to like kind of beat the deck. And it uses Hoplomachus dice, which are just real straight ahead, either hit or miss. Mm-hmm. Depending on the color of the dice, you have different odds. Easy to understand, plays in a half an hour, etc. So we kind of started working on that a little bit, and then once we realized that we were going to have to delay the Elder Scrolls into this year, we wanted a filler, not filler from a filler game perspective, but like we wanted a campaign to kind of bridge the gap between the fall and the Elder Scrolls, because we just did. It felt weird to not do a big fall campaign. So we really started to dive in and work on it, and we thought about various themes, and we're like, well, what if we made it theme agnostic? And 20 Strong, or Solar Sentinels, actually, though I think the bugs and everything are really, really cool, it's kind of a reflection of like, yeah, let's just try something different. Like you're moon warriors and you're killing mean bugs, and it's got a cool and interesting art style with cool foil on it. And then we'll release another deck, and it'll be a Too Many Bones deck, and it'll have the flavor of Too Many Bones inspired into it. The Hoplo deck feels like, it's got a variety of things that feel a lot like Hoplo Victorum. And it's going to allow us to do, I think, a number of different themes, art styles, etc. It all uses a basic core set of rules, and then every deck bends those rules in a number of interesting ways. So like I said, the Hoplo deck feels like Hoplo, Too Many Bones feels like Too Many Bones. There's backup plans that you can use, that kind of thing. And we're just really, really excited about it. And again, everyone we've demoed that for has come away, I think, almost just as excited about that. I think Alex Radcliffe of Board Game Co., I think he was actually more excited about 20 Strong than he was about Elder Scrolls at the end of the day. So I don't know what that says about anything, but it's just a really compelling, it's ultimately kind of a dice placement and sequencing puzzle at its heart. It's all about, which monsters do you fight in which order, which dice do you commit in which order, that kind of thing. But it's a really, really great challenge. Playtesters have loved it. Everyone we've demoed it for has loved it. And we're already lining up a subsequent trilogy of decks that we will likely be crowdfunding in late summer. Cool. Awesome. That we're working with Manny Trumbulley, who is half of Dice Rope. Yeah. So I should have actually. I don't have it up here next to my desk. I should have brought some of the art that he's already had done for it. It's funny because his stuff looks as good as our stuff that we're still working on already. But it's not coming till later this summer. So the idea is that so Manny's created this Tanglewoods universe, is what we're calling it, which is heavily like fairy tale themed. So there's Goldilocks, Little Red Riding Hood, Jack and the Beanstalk. They're all like represented there. So that's kind of our second go at 20 Strong. And then the idea is that we'll just keep rolling out new themes, new art styles, new decks. And because the commit is so low from a production cost standpoint, because they're just decks of cards, really all we have to pay for is the art. And then it's, obviously it's not nearly as heavy as designing something like the Elder Scrolls or Burn Cycle or Cloudspire. So the design commitment is also much lighter. And we're hopeful that we can just release a few decks a year and keep exploring new and interesting themes and that kind of thing.
Jeremy is pitching in chat the idea that you come up with a deck of me and him, and it's two brothers with swords. Would you be interested in developing that?
No.
What about you? And it was three brothers with swords. Okay,
No,
that's fair. That's
no,
fair.
we're not
That's fair.
interested in that.
That's fair. I can accept that. Take that to the chin and move on. Are there any interesting development stories from when you were designing 20 Strong, like when you were bringing it together, about how it kind of came to be? Like was Josh's idea fully realized, or were there some nice milestones along the way that kind of brought it to the point where it's at now?
I think I think the main moment I think is when we were talking with Frosted Games, who do they're doing the German localization of Too Many Bones, and so we were at Essen this last October, and we were talking to them about 20 Strong, and we hadn't really shown it to anyone outside of the company yet at all. And so we were trying to get a commitment from them on the German version of it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's a little hasty. Like you guys just crowdfunded it, like or you guys are just crowdfunding it now, and you're trying to get it out next summer, and blah 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 blah." And they were like, "But we'll take a look at it. Like you can demo it for us while you're here at Essen." And so it was late one night, and we were demoing it for Frosted Games, and they were working through it, and they were kind of like, "Oh yeah, well you just do that, you'll just kind of do that," and then oh, and then he looked up at us and was just like, "I love it, I love it." Like it was just like, it appears really really simple at its core. It's super easy to learn. You can teach it in a matter of minutes, but like it has a surprising amount of depth. Like it's got really crunchy decisions to make, and again that whole like modularity system to it, I think I think people are really gonna love it. So that was the moment. That was the moment that I look at in terms of the development. Again, when you're working on something, you're often just too close to it to know if it's actually good. Or the ironic thing is also just we don't play that many games here. Yeah. Like in terms of like the broader board game sphere, yeah. We don't have time to I played Castles of Burgundy with Alex and Jeremy for the first time in my life 2 weeks ago, because that's just how it is. Like we don't have a ton of time to play everything that's out there, and so sometimes you're working on something and you're wondering like, oh, am I accidentally like ripping off something that's already out there, and that people are going to be like, oh, I see what you're doing, that's just a reskin of this game over here, or this mechanic over here. But that demoing it for Frosted Games, that was the moment that I was like, okay, we're on to something here, this is going to be really good. And then the response to the crowdfunding campaign too was way beyond our expectation. The most you could spend on the campaign was $65, and we still did almost $500,000 on it. And so it was just that moment too, like we felt like people were hungry for a more affordable, simpler chip theory game, and the response from everybody has been like, yes, we do, and this is really great. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Like outside of the permissions or the partnerships that you would have to accomplish to make it happen, if you could expand the 20 Strong into, like, you've already talked about the Tanglewood series that you've got with Manny Tremblay. If you could just like grab an existing game or an existing IP to just add in, what, like you personally, what would you want to exist in the 20 Strong world as a deck?
Oh man. Well, if you can't tell from the things behind me, I'm a huge Mario and Nintendo fan in general. So my own dream, and I don't know. So I will also just preface with saying I don't know if we'll ever do another licensed, like huge project like Elder Scrolls ever again. Just because again, it has been a challenge from this is just not the type of company we are. Like we are a much more nimble company than licensing allows. But if we were, my personal dream license would be something either Zelda or Mario, or actually Earthbound, which is a very obscure for most people anyway, Nintendo IP. That would be my thing. We've talked though, and this is not an announcement of any kind, genuinely speaking, like this is not a hint, but we have, because we've been working very, very closely with GameFound and with Marchin, who's at the top of GameFound and Awaken Realms. We have talked about like, maybe there'd be room for I don't know, like a Nemesis 20 strong deck at some point, something along those
That'd be
lines.
cool. That'd be cool.
Again, that's not an announcement. I swear to you.
You heard it here first, guys, from Josh.
If Martian's watching this stream, we haven't even talked. He's like, "What the heck are we talking about? This is not." But that I will say, I mean, Nemesis is my favorite board game that I've played in the last couple of years, with the understanding that I haven't played everything out there. Meg was supposed to teach me Gloomhaven last weekend, actually, or 2 weekends ago for the first time. I haven't even played Gloomhaven just because narrative focused games, I don't have the time for them. So anything that's campaign based is just really hard for me. So so I would say that's something, and it seems like, because we've been working a lot with the folks that have crossover between GameFound and Awakened Realms, maybe an Awakened Realms 20 strong deck would make sense at some point. Cool. But that's
the chat seems to believe that it's a full announcement, so I think they're just going to run with that. But
we are known for dropping hints in all of our like social posts and that kind of thing, that people look back and they're like, they announced that without announcing it like a year ago. This is not that. I swear.
Curious, and this is kind of a joke, but also you talked about Triplock being your first attempt at doing a smaller game. Do you foresee Triplock being reskinned and repurposed as a mini expansion for Elder Scrolls, to where it's just just a lock picking expansion to the game?
Oh man, no, I do not. No, what's funny is that like when Triplock first came out, people were like, "Oh, I'm gonna try and like house rule using Triplock's unlocking system as the unlocking system for Too Many Bones." No, to the contrary. We have massively simplified lockpicking in Elder Scrolls compared to how it works in Too Many Bones, and definitely how it works in Triplock. And the reason for that is because we want skill lines that deal with it, and so it needs to be a system that's like, again, like explaining lockpicking in Too Many Bones would take me at least 5 minutes. Explaining lockpicking in Elder Scrolls would take me about 15 seconds. And that's because, again, we want skill lines that can easily manipulate that mechanic and make it really, really easy to play with. And so the simpler the overarching structure of that mechanic is, the easier it is to do interesting things with it. So,
I think I have one last question about Chip Theory games titles in general. Specifically Cloudspire, and then after that I figure you can share kind of some of your end of stream news that you might want to give to people before we could maybe ask some send it over to chat for some questions that they have. Sure. The question that I have is, speaking to your point about the inability to be able to play games, even as a content creator, it is very difficult for me to actually, I have kids, I have, my wife, I have the job that I'm doing with content creation, I have the publisher gig that I have, and with all of that, it is actually comically difficult to play board games in a, being in the industry. And all of that to say, I have pretty much all of your titles. Hoplamachus just recently came in. I don't have Triplock, but my favorite one that I have played, to the extent that I have been able to get it to the table, is Cloudspire. I think it is such a fantastic game, truly ridiculously rewarding whenever you get into it. I think the getting into it part and staying current with the rule set and the way that all of the factions interact, I think that might be the biggest hurdle but I think once you're in, I think people across the board unanimously love Cloudspire, and I adore it, and I just haven't had the time to really dip back in from my initial time with it. Are there any, you had the Unbreakable campaign for Too Many Bones, you've got other stuff. Are there any plans for future Cloudspire content that you're able to tease or that exists at all?
Oh man, what to say and how to say it.
I feel like that's almost saying
enough.
I feel like
that's kind of we are talking about people have heard me bring it up in streams before. I will say yes, there are some plans. Plans. I will also say I will hedge on that by saying sometimes our plans change.
Sure.
So, but yes, right now, presently, there are some plans, and we are looking at possibly committing to said plans in the relatively near future.
Is this
We
is 100% confirmed, like the Nemesis deck for 20 strong? Like, is this in the same category?
Stop it! Stop it! Here's we just kind of went over our product roadmap, and so one of the things that we've been waiting for is just like knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt when the Elder Scrolls was launching on GameFound, and now that we like know that. Now that allows us to really like set in stone kind of what else we're doing. And I will say that there is some Cloudspire stuff in the 18-month roadmap, product roadmap that we have planned. There is some Cloudspire stuff in there.
Cool.
I won't say how much. I won't commit to how much, and I won't commit to any specific timeline right now. But it is not dead. It is not dead. We want to give it a closeout the way that we gave Too Many Bones a closeout. And I mean, to your point, I was just watching this afternoon. I was watching your video on like how much is too much, and you had the giant Everdell box in front of you and that kind of thing. And I mean, you even brought up Cloudspire in that video. We are very cognizant of that. We know that we could pump out Too Many Bones content for the next probably additional 5 years, and people would probably keep buying it. But there's a limit to how much content we feel inspired to make. And then we also just know there's a limit to how much stuff is playable by any one human, within the realm of reason. Yeah. So we were just talking today as a team because we just got all the Unbreakable stuff, Too Many Bones Unbreakable stuff in the final production copies. We just got them in this week. And we were looking at all that. We're just like, we almost doubled with Unbreakable and all the content that we're releasing. We almost doubled the amount of total Too Many Bones content in existence.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And people forget how much stuff was on that campaign. It's crazy. So we don't want to work on Cloudspire forever. We do kind of want to close it out and say, like, with a certain amount of finality, like, yeah, this is it. This is everything. Like, if you back this campaign, finish out your collection, you're good to go. The end. And we do want to do that for Cloudspire because it is, that game has had such a funny shelf life the people who love it, it's like their favorite game on the planet. The people who do invest in going through the full solo campaign, they're like, this is so great, but it does take a massive commitment. It does take a massive commitment to really, to get the most out of that game. It's, some people have even compared it to a lifestyle game. You really have to dig in to get what you need out of it. So, there you go.
Okay. Well, before we move over to audience questions, you did kind of hint at it yourself, but I do believe that prior to the start of this, you said that you might have a tidbit of news that people would want to know about Unbreakable.
Yeah. So if you missed we're announcing two dates on this stream. One is Elder Scrolls, again, launching March 28th on GameFound. You can follow the page right now. The other is that if you missed the Too Many Bones Unbreakable campaign, if you missed it, I have it right here.
That's pretty looking.
This will be available for pre-order. This will be available for pre-order starting on April 1st. And prior to this stream, I was also working on a Too Many Bones Unbreakable GameFound update because we expect it to be landing in the United States for North American fulfillment around April 15th. No, that is not a joke. I see the chat. I'll explain why in a second. So the games are getting ready to go in the containers and get on the boat, and it'll be landing in the U.S. For North American fulfillment around April 15th. It will be landing in Europe around the end of April, first week of May, somewhere in there. So about 2 weeks after the North American container. So we are right on the brink of fulfilling Too Many Bones Unbreakable and all of this crazy content. And we're really, really excited about that too. People have been waiting for a long time. Our biggest campaign ever. So it's just a crazy, crazy amount of content. No, and so yeah, April 1st is not a joke, and here's the reason why. We always release a joke product on April 1st. And so we know we have a lot of customers that will be coming to our website to order or pre-order said potential joke product, if such a thing were to exist. We are also releasing our 2022, and I know it's 2023, but we are releasing our 2022 promo pack on April 1st because we did not have those in time to sell during the holidays, which was originally planned due to some of the COVID shutdowns, that kind of thing that have been happening at the factories overseas. So our April Fool's joke product, the 2022 promo pack, and the entire Unbreakable cycle of content will be available to order/pre-order on our website on April 1st. That's not a joke. That stuff will be available. So stay tuned for all.
I do love the concept that your April Fool's jokes are consistently attractive enough for people that you decided to actually do a product release on April 1st.
Yeah, well, I mean, it started with a like massive joke product, which was based on a really weird production error that we had in our third print run of Too Many Bones. That, again, there's a blog post out there. Look up the story of Nam and Deb if you really want to hear about that. So we released it kind of a joke product to go along with it. And then that was like, people loved it. People absolutely loved it. And we were like, we kind of got to do something every year. And the products themselves have become less and less funny as products. Yeah. Like, we generally use it to, we'll do an April Fool's joke, and then there will be a product tie-in that, nowadays is less of a joke because we don't want to release crappy joke content for our games. Like, we want to release like actually cool stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, anyway, stay tuned for that. I will confirm we are not releasing any Too Many Bones content on this April Fool's Day, but there will be something.
Interesting. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I guess, I'm trying to be mindful. You need to get out of the office in at least 20 minutes, and we're also 27 minutes.
We're okay.
I'm going to open up the conversation to chat. If any of you guys have questions, we will field some of them so that Josh can answer your most pressing concerns about the upcoming Nemesis deck and everything else that's on the way.
Stop. Anyone who tuned in late is going to be like, what?
Legal disclaimer, there is no Nemesis deck for 20 strong. It's going to be, guys, for everybody that's in chat, it's going to be our interest and appeal for it. The more we ask for it, the more likely, maybe it'll happen. What is your favorite and least favorite part of being a game dev?
Oh, man. That's a good question. My favorite part is, especially working for a company like this, it's just like no idea is too crazy. Any goofball idea will be entertained, and I think that's part of what keeps us fresh and inspired and that kind of thing. I don't know how it works at other companies, but here anyway, it's like, again, the goal is always to make stuff that we think is cool and we think is really entertaining. Like, we're most interested in entertaining ourselves. Funny enough, like the Automaton of Shale pop-up book. Like, we probably lost. I don't think we lost money on it, but certainly there was some opportunity cost that we lost working on that at the end of the day. But we were like, we want to make a pop-up book. That's cool. What if, can we do it? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. And so we did it, and it was cool, and that kind of thing. So that's my favorite thing, is just that, like, again, there's some really, quote unquote dumb jokes and encounters in the Too Many Bones universe that we got to throw in there. just because that's what we do. It's fun to come to work every day and work on things. I will also say though that like I do a lot less game development than I used to. My title now technically is CMO, and as the marketing needs for the company have grown, I've been, we've grown our development team much more, and I have been sucked much more into the marketing side of the company, which is fine. We have a really, really great group of folks working on all the games, and I still get to step in when needed. I did a lot of work on Unbreakable, and I haven't been doing as much on 20 Strong, and haven't done quite as much on Elder Scrolls either, actually, in the last couple of years. So the least favorite part is just like it's hard work, and like especially when you're trying to make things in the physical world that need physical prototyping to like really test, like. And this is the funny thing about playtesting. People are always really excited. Oh, can I playtest your stuff? Can I playtest your stuff? And then a lot of folks, like once they do it, they're like, oh, this isn't good yet. And it's like, oh yeah, that's why it needs to be playtested. Like, yeah, like the rules suck, or
oh goodness,
or the rules aren't quite there, or we don't have the player references to where they need to be yet, or the iconography isn't there yet, so you're rolling a D6 and then referencing on a card. Okay, here's what the number 1 does. Here's what the number 2 does. Like, and a lot of that's like not fun. Yeah. It's just, like it's just not, like, it's tedious, and it's a little clunky. That's board game development, and and that's why, like everybody and their mother will come to you and say like, oh, I've got this idea for a game where you're a hero and you kill stuff, and there's probably like some dice placement. And you're like,
good to know.
That's the easy part. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta, like, building a playable thing is a challenge. So yeah. Gotcha. Anyway.
And then Lazy Cat asked if there's going to be language versions available for Elder Scrolls during the campaign.
Yes. So we are still actively. So one of the things is that we only recently locked in the final MSRP of the game. So I can't announce. So I've announced this in a couple places, not formally from our like socials or anything. All-in gameplay for the Elder Scrolls is under $250. And shipping will be very, very, very affordable. That's all I'll say right now. I'm gonna save that one for launch day.
That's awesome to hear.
But yeah, but we only recently locked in the MSRP for all that kind of stuff, and so only now with that locked in, and kind of with the scope of the game fully locked in, are we able to really have brass tacks conversations with our translation partners regarding the full terms of a translation agreement. So we are talking to lots of companies, lots of languages. We're trying to get some things signed. The only one that we have signed formally as of right now is the Czech translation, which I know is probably not like what people would expect of the first one that you're
I'll fly to Prague. I'll go there.
Yeah, but we have signed Fox in a Box with Fox in a Box to do the translation of the Czech version of the game. I anticipate there will be many more in the next couple weeks as we kind of careen toward our March 28th launch. But yes, we want to do as many as we can. I'm not making any promises on any specific language, just that we want it available on day one in as many languages as possible. So there you go.
Awesome. Interesting question from Trooper. So you said that kind of Unbreakable was your, last dance with Too Many Bones, and there's the hope that you guys have to maybe give the same fan service to Cloudspire before kind of calling it quits maybe on any other content there. What games do you guys have ideas? Is Hoplomachus going to get more, like, where do you think you guys are going to head as kind of like these marquee games that you guys really, the mom and pop company, the nimble CTG that has come, to kind of grow into this monolith? where do you think you guys will direct your attention after kind of like your hallmark titles, have a swan song?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there will be more Hoplo coming. I can say that with authority. So we have a pretty large expansion for Victorum specifically in the works, Victorum and Remastered. And then there's some other things also going on. And I think folks will be excited. I see, at least I think I saw, did I see Board Game Co?
Board Game Co was in chat, and One Stop Co-op Shop was in chat. So the two of them have
yeah.
been
So
hanging
I know one of the things that folks have kind of called out as perhaps a criticism of Victorum is that it does get a little bit grindy, and that the arenas don't change as much. So we have an expansion in the works that will introduce some different mechanics for each arena. It will introduce some things that make the Scions feel a little bit more like Too Many Bones Tyrants in terms of influencing the overall campaign structure and having Banes be a little bit more impactful, that kind of thing, along with a few other pretty awesome things. Cool. So that's all I can say about that right now. But that is in development, and that will be coming. So Victorum has been a massive success for us.
Great, that's awesome.
Both as a campaign, and then as it's been selling super well after release as well, which is great. So yeah, we anticipate there will be much more Hoplo to come, and that's great. So there's that, and then if Elder Scrolls is a success, and we certainly anticipate that it will be, next year there will certainly, or whenever the game releases, I shouldn't get ahead of myself on that because it's always projecting. But when Elder Scrolls does come out, we certainly anticipate that we will be doing more expansions for that. We have we're pretty. All I'll say about this is we're pretty excited about the Tanglewoods universe and this art style and this.
If you guys work with Manny Tremblay long term, I won't be upset at all. So
yeah. So I'll just say we're excited about the Tanglewoods universe. No promises there, but we're excited about that universe and the partnership that we have with Manny. Manny is so chill and so low key and so easy to work with. It's just
insanely talented.
It's great. So, yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Anyway, so we're excited about that, and then what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, at some point, we certainly, and this is not in development right now at all. We need a breather from this universe to a large extent, but at some point there will be a Too Many Bones Too Many Bones, right? It won't be called that, even though we love dad jokes and bad puns. At some point, we're not done. We're done with this iteration of Bones, and there should be enough content in this iteration of Bones now to satisfy literally anyone who ever takes interest in this universe. Like, there's plenty here, but we certainly anticipate that at some point in the future we will absolutely revisit this world with a full-fledged sequel to that game and that world. Again, it is not in development at all. Again, to the contrary, Too Many Bones 2, Elder Scrolls in many ways is our Too Many Bones 2, with a completely different IP, obviously. Yeah. A lot of people after we released Splice and Dice were like, oh, release an expansion for Too Many Bones where you build your own gear lock. That's kind of what we're doing in the Elder Scrolls. You're building your own character. You're creating, you're pulling skill lines from a variety of different things. So, so that's what I anticipate. And then again, 20 Strong is also the type of thing where, so I will say we're planning a crowdfunding campaign for 20 Strong Tanglewoods. And again, that will probably be late summer. But I don't know that after the 20 Strong Tanglewoods campaign, we'll go back to crowdfunding for that one. That one is probably going to go direct into distribution and be available at retail and that kind of thing, which is a first for us for for something that small going, and then really, really pushing the retail side of it. And I think there's a good chance that that future 20 strong decks may just be soft releases that we just release directly to our website. I don't think it'll be the type of thing that we'll need to go to crowdfunding for again in the future, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes, but certainly we expect that we'll be releasing more 20 strong content for years to come. It's a franchise that I think is going to have some really strong legs to it. So
there's a question that is up there that I do want to answer or ask to you, but there's also been several comments that I'm going to piggyback on top of and say that if you guys are going to dip your fingers into the licensing pond one more time, my vote out of the stuff that's behind you right now would be Metroid. And I mean, I think it's perfect. You can get the chip and you can just spin it, and then that's Samus going ahead and doing.
No, wrong side, wrong side.
So
I'm mirrored. Sorry, I'm mirrored in the. Everybody's like he's pointing to. That's actually a Castlevania shadow box. I don't know if that's coming through on video, but yeah.
So the Metroid would love to see you guys do Samus. So that wasn't a question, but that is just a definite vote in my corner of I'd love to see you guys do Metroid if you ended up having the opportunity. The question
I just started Metroid Prime Remastered 2 nights ago, playing through that for the first time since college.
Nice.
And man, what a great game. What an absolutely great game.
Remastered games are on the rise. I want to do Dead Space Remastered if I have the opportunity to or time. So out of the question that I saw up there, though, one of the most, it's absolutely not necessary. I don't want to be the person that's like pushing deluxeification too heavily, but one of the coolest things you guys have ever done have been the brass mag minis for Burn Cycle. Any other games you're gonna do brass mag minis for? So that was a question. That wasn't me. That was a question in chat. I didn't say that. That wasn't me. It was just me. I'm reading stuff on my computer.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, Devin, you have.
It's because I put my hand up in
front
of it. It should hopefully
Okay. Okay. I didn't know if you put some Vaseline on the.
I got really excited, so we'll see if it refocuses.
Additional brass mags. Yes.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get.
There will be.
Let's just see if it
works. So the thing again, the challenge, and not that there may be people who actually disagree that everything we've ever released for any game has objectively made the game better. Part of the challenge is that brass mags so the reason that we did brass mags with Burn Cycle and not with other games is that in Burn Cycle you're never on top of a stack of health chips. So that chip acts as a nice like miniature base that you can use. And anytime you put a heavy piece of metal on top of a large stack of chips, it makes for an objectively worse gameplay experience. And our fans have heard me talk about this before because everybody has asked, people have been asking for these for a while. So if we were going to release brass mags for other popular franchises, we would have to solve that problem.
Well, you just need a strong enough magnet to just lift the whole health chip stack. Like that's all you would need, right?
And then that would require premium health because the basic health chips don't have a metal plug in them. So we're looking at it. Stay tuned.
Okay, sounds good.
Stay tuned.
Sounds good. Well, I have gotten blurry as all get out, and we are nearing the window of time in which we both need to attend to our families and get out of here. So thank you so much, Josh. Is there anything else that you want to say at the end of this? I mean, I appreciate everybody who has stayed with us throughout the entire live stream. Is there anything that you want to shout out that we haven't given any time to or any space to?
I think we covered it. So again, Too Many Bones Unbreakable, the entire cycle of content will be up for pre-order April 1st, in North America, hoping to be fulfilling in May and June. So releasing imminently. And Elder Scrolls, the Elder Scrolls. Sorry, we were told very clearly that it is not Elder Scrolls. It is always the Elder Scrolls.
I may have messed that up.
Betrayal. Betrayal of the Second Era, coming to GameFound March 28th. It is the most beautiful crowdfunding page we have ever made. I think it's one of the it's a big beast behemoth of a beautiful game. We're so excited for it. Can't wait to show the entire page off to all of you. And we would covet your pledge. I know lots and lots of folks are very jaded on crowdfunding right now, especially when it comes to big box titles. Lots of people are fearful with things like Holy Grail games getting shut down and that kind of thing, that that their games may not even ever arrive. I would like to announce that Chip Theory is financially stable. I would like to announce that Chip Theory has great fulfillment partners, and we're really excited about this game. We hope that you will join us and check it out on the 18th. Or sorry, the 28th, not the 18th, the 28th.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so March 28th for Elder Scrolls, April 1st for Unbreakable on the web store, and then 20 Strong on the way, and Hoplomachus fulfilling. You guys have gotten past the hurdle, I think. So.
Oh, it feels like it. Chinese New Year. So the holidays and Chinese New Year are always just really, really challenging in board game world, and it's one of those things where if you don't get everything done, like by the end of November, it almost inevitably drifts into March, and so there is like this like flood of stuff that's all happening right now, and it feels kind of crazy. But yeah, there should be a 20 Strong update going out to backers actually, hopefully tonight. That is announcing that the game is still on pace to fulfill in June, and just a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be an amazing year for Chip Theory fans, and hopefully we bring a whole bunch of new people into the fold as well.
All right. Well, Josh, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat, and I appreciate getting to share all this information with the viewers here. And thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.
See you later.